welcome to the Atomic Wizards podcast. It's time for our Now Playing series, where we take a look at the newest movies and TV shows currently playing in theaters or streaming. I'm Miranda, the film fanatic.
I'm Udi, the de facto film expert.
And I'm Dan, the kaiju extraordinaire.
On today's episode of Now Playing, we'll be discussing the latest entry in the Ghostbusters franchise, Ghostbusters Frozen Empire.
Ghostbusters Frozen Empire sees the return of the Spengler family in an all-new ghost-trapping adventure. When a dangerous paranormal presence threatens to turn New York into frozen wasteland, generations of Ghostbusters, both old and new, must work together to keep the world from literally freezing over.
Ghostbusters Frozen Empire is a 2024 movie directed by Gil Keenan, who also co wrote the film with Jason Reitman. It is a sequel to 2021's Ghostbusters Afterlife and is the fifth film in the Ghostbusters franchise. It stars the talents of McKenna Grace, Paul Rudd, Finn Wolfhard, Carrie Coon, Logan Kim, Celeste O'Connor, James Acaster, Dan Aykroyd, Ernie Hudson, Bill Murray, Annie Potts, and Kumail Nanjiani.
This episode will have spoilers, so go watch it if you haven't. Now let's get into our initial thoughts on Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. Rudy, what are your thoughts?
Well, I'll keep it pretty brief so we can get more into the discussion. I thought it was all right. I'm a pretty casual Ghostbusters fan. I didn't really grow up with the movies too much. I was aware of their existence, and I watched like little snippets and commercials or ads, or I knew like references in pop culture, but I hadn't really watched them until I was either in like middle school or high school, I think. And I've just always thought they were kind of just like fun, like classic movies, I guess. Like they definitely have that sort of iconic like 80s vibe to them. They were fun, silly little movies, and I enjoyed them for what they were. When the last one came out, Ghostbusters Afterlife, I was like, I'm down to go check this out. It looked kind of fun, and it was fun. I think it was a solid attempt to reignite some interest and passion into the franchise, and it was like a pretty well done family movie, I suppose. I would say this one is a bit more family movie like. But yeah, so with this new one, I think I enjoyed it much more than the last one just because it didn't feel like it was going as hard. I mean, it still was in different ways, but it didn't feel like it was going quite as hard into like the nostalgia because in a certain way Afterlife kind of felt like the Force Awakens of the Ghostbusters, and so it felt like this one was able to be a bit more expansive and have a bit more fun. So I enjoyed that aspect. Being back in New York was fun. Getting to be in the firehouse was fun. But the movie's not without its faults, and it at the end of the day, it's not going to be like the most memorable movie of the year. It's not going to be like the greatest movie of the year. Like it's an all right popcorn movie, and I feel like if you go in with those kinds of expectations of not expecting that much and just going to enjoy just like a nice, silly, fun popcorn movie, you'll probably enjoy it. But if you're going in expecting anything else, really, I feel like you'll either be disappointed or you might not enjoy it that much. But I got what I wanted out of it, so I had fun. So yeah, what about you, Miranda? What did you think?
It's a enjoyable movie. It's a nice like Saturday afternoon movie. It's quite funny still because that's what Ghostbusters is. So it still has the comedy bits in it throughout the whole thing. I liked the ghost designs for the ones they had in like the secret bunker thing. Those are kind of interesting. The bad guy ghost dude who freezes people, yeah, would have definitely freaked me out as a child. I'm pretty sure the original Ghostbusters freaked me out as a child. So like that's fitting, I guess. I like the fact that the old Ghostbusters are a little more involved in this one, whereas Afterlife, it's very much about Egon and his grandchildren and his daughter. So that one's very much a family one. This one also has that family element in it throughout the story. I want Podcast's shirt because it's cool. And I just in general like Phoebe and Podcast as their characters. They're just very interesting to me, especially in Afterlife because it's like, well, one science nerd person and then like a AV type nerd person, and they're just like i- in middle school. So to see them both back in this, obviously Phoebe was, I was not expecting Podcast to be in this. It was nice and refreshing because I like their dynamic. What about you, Dan?
All right. So, what does the resident Ghostbusters fan think of Ghostbusters Frozen Empire? Well, my experience with this movie was very similar to a movie we covered last year for the podcast, The Marvels. I'm talking specifically about The Marvels. Because in The Marvels, I really was enjoying myself for like the first two acts. Like I was like, yeah, man, like this movie's great. Like I don't understand why so many people are hating on it right now. Like I'm enjoying myself. I'm having a really good time. But then we get to a certain part and then it's like, oh, okay. And yeah, that was pretty much my experience with Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. I really liked this movie for the first two acts. But then we get to that third act, and it kind of derailed itself for me personally. And we can go into more into detail later in the discussion. But yeah, I think I walked away not liking it as much as you and Udi did, Miranda, because yeah, I don't know. Like I said, just that third act just really it. I had a lot of issues with the third act, and it's interesting because like not to keep bringing up other movies, but I also had like a similar reaction to Pokemon Detective Pikachu. Like that was another movie that I also really enjoyed for like the first two acts, but then you get to that third act and it kind of just brings it down a little. But that, that's not to say there weren't aspects of Frozen Empire that I didn't like. No, there were plenty of aspects of this movie that I liked. I liked the world building parts to it that we can talk about later. Like Miranda mentioned, I like seeing the original cast back. Like, I honestly didn't think that Bill Murray would return for another Ghostbusters movie. Like I thought for sure that Afterlife was going to be the last one, but no, he came back for this one. So it was kind of cool to once again see the old gang back, and then they even got Janine, Annie Potts back, and she plays a bigger role in this movie than she did in Afterlife. So like that was all really cool to see, and like like Udi said, it was nice to be in New York again, to see the firehouse. It was cool to see Slimer again, and cool thing that I found out is apparently they did use parts of like the old Slimer puppet from the original 1984 film for this, so like that was pretty cool. The big bad like ghost that's like freezing everybody, his design was really cool as well, so I did like that. But like I said, man, just that third act just really brought it down for me. But I wouldn't say like this is a terrible movie, but it did kind of fall below a bit of my expectations. All right, so those were my quick thoughts. Let's kind of dive deeper now into the discussion here. How did you guys feel about like the world building aspects of the movie that I mentioned earlier, specifically like the new paranormal research division that Winston started? Because I'll start us off. I don't mean to like kind of take over here, but
Dare you?
I know, but I just want to make sure that this question makes sense to you guys. But I thought it was cool, like how Winston kind of just starting this like whole like division, like researching in the different ghost types, because that's something that the other movies really didn't explore. Like Dan Aykroyd's character Ray in like the first Ghostbusters would say stuff like, "Oh, it's a class 5 full free roaming vapor," or something like that. And it's like, okay, that's just words. It's not really explained a lot. But I like how this movie kind of explores that a little bit. Like I thought that was really cool. Like what did you guys think?
I thought it was a fun idea. I mean, I could be wrong. I thought in either like some other movie or in like one of the video games or something, Ernie Hudson's character. What's his name again? You just said it. Winston. Winston.
Winston, yeah.
Like, hasn't Winston kind of done this before, where he like became kind of just successful by himself, and then he bankrolled the Ghostbusters, kind of like he was the one keeping them afloat? Or is this like a wholly unique thing to this movie?
I'm pretty sure that's a wholly unique thing to this movie because, yeah, no, I mean, because they built this up at the end of Afterlife because Afterlife had like an after credit scene. I'm pretty sure with Winston, like kind of like showing off his success a bit. If you remember, I don't know, but
Mm.
like Afterlife kind of had a scene that built up to it, but other than that, none of the movies or games really have explored it. Other than like I think because we were talking about this the other day. Do you remember that one multiplayer Ghostbusters game that came out like a couple years ago?
Was it the one I mentioned the other day where it was like the asymmetrical multiplayer one,
Yeah,
or?
asymmetrical. I couldn't remember the term, but yeah, like that kind of plays a small part in like the asymmetrical Ghostbusters game that came out like was it last year or 2 years ago? I don't remember, but like
Yeah.
Winston is kind of like in the same role where like, he's like bankrolling the Ghostbusters in that game, but that's just like a small story segment for that game. It's not something that game really explores too much.
Gotcha. Well, anyway, my point was that I was gonna get to is just that I thought I'd heard of that before. So like I was like, okay, well, I liked that idea before when I thought it was introducing something else. I was like, yeah, that's cool. I'm glad that they're doing it here. I mean, like it was interesting and whatever, and I mean, it seems like a natural, like the only natural way to kind of expand the Ghostbusters, because I feel like you can't just keep them confined to the firehouse. It just makes sense for them to expand in that regard. Although it did just kind of feel similar to them corporatizing the Ghostbusters and then the other Ghostbusters, which is just the Spranglers, being like a sort of like rogue agency, I guess. Not necessarily rogue agency because they're still working in tandem. I guess independent agency. And they're kind of like the face of the Ghostbusters, I guess, because I don't know if the Ghost Corps, I don't even know what they were called in this one, but I don't know if they had much of a public presence necessarily. Whereas obviously the Spangler family Ghostbusters, they're driving around town, getting called up whenever someone needs a ghost to be busted and stuff like that. So yeah, so I thought it was interesting. I liked the idea of like them keeping ghosts contained and studying them, studying objects. It did feel like a bit of an oversight with their device thingy, where it's like, oh, this is a haunted thing. We're just gonna suck the ghost out of it and trap it. I would think that given I'm just someone who's watched a lot of horror stuff and a lot of ghost and spirit stuff, but I think it would be kind of silly for them to not assume that there could be objects that might hold more powerful entities than just simple ghosts. That seemed like kind of an oversight to me, but it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah, I want to add on to that thought that you had because you were saying how you felt it was kind of an oversight for them to like not think that there might be more powerful ghosts in certain like cursed objects and whatnot. I also think it's a bit of an oversight to not have like a backup power plan in case those EM or PKE like fields shut down because that happens at one point in the movie and they had like no backup plan for
They
that.
did, they had generators, they were just waiting for the generators to reboot.
Oh, did they? Okay.
Yeah, the
Uh,
guy with the glasses was like, "Oh, we gotta wait for the generators."
oh, okay.
So,
Must have missed that.
I do kind of feel like having any lapse, or I mean, obviously, like in a total power catastrophe, like sure, there's not much you can do, but having there be a moment where the shields can go down before the generators go up, that seemed kind of like a not a great design.
Yeah, that's true.
so saying, "Oh, it's an oversight that they didn't think how more powerful entities were in a object," I'm pretty sure, like, they're like, "Oh, yeah," they just like, they're aware that there is powerful beings attached to these objects. They just didn't know what the spear was.
What I was saying is that like they might have acknowledged that, but then why would I feel like they should have done more research into the object or trying to figure out what was attached to the object before trying to suck the spirit out of it, because if they had done that, then they probably wouldn't have tried to suck the spirit out of that ball. Which, in the grand scheme of things, that wasn't what unleashed the evil entity spirit, like the main antagonist ghoul. It was Phoebe's actions, I guess, or whatever, and like the ghost that was tricking her. But it did kind of start. I don't know, like, cause the guy, like, he hurt his hand because it froze or whatever, and then they almost had the other ghost escape because of that too, because like that wasn't like the power failure when it happened or whatever. I don't know. It just felt like obviously nothing too crazy happened because of that, but it still just seemed like an oversight to me, given at least other media where demons and other powerful beings can be attached to like items or whatever. So it just seemed like an oversight in that regard to me, if that makes sense. But yeah, so I don't know. I thought it was cool. It seemed like a natural progression to me for this world, and in a good way to expand it. Because otherwise, if you just keep them at the firehouse, I don't know how you could keep that going for super super long. But yeah, it seemed like an interesting idea. I liked the new cast. I liked the guy with the glasses. He was funny and he had some fun moments. I wish we could have gotten even more of him, but obviously, like there's only so much they could do in this one movie. But I thought he was pretty fun. The new gadgets that they had, like the sort of like gauntlet ray gun, that was cool. That's not the name of it. I'm sorry. Again, I'm a very casual Ghostbusters fan. And as Miranda said, like the designs of the ghosts that they had there were cool. I liked them. I was kind of hoping that we would get more with them. I thought that they would play a bigger part in the third act or something because they kind of even went through like describing what each one was and what their powers were and what they did. So I thought like, oh, okay, this will be used later or whatever. But only one of them really was. The other ones really weren't. So that was kind of a letdown in that regard. Not a huge letdown, but kind of a disappointment. But yeah, so that's how I felt. What about you guys?
I'm glad they didn't bring those other ghosts back in at the end because then it would feel very Marvel endy, battle-y, Star Wars type thing, and like I'm tired of that. Like just give me the bad guy and like the good guys fighting the bad guy. Like so tired of the team like chaos fighting at the end of movies. So I liked that they did not necessarily bring in a bunch of other ghosts. I liked the fact that the possessor was like shooting back and forth. I liked how they showed that, and I liked the lion part when like he possesses the lion. I thought that was very interesting. I mean, for world building, I guess like I mean, they're just gonna keep talking about more ghosts because it's Ghostbusters. So it was nice that they were back in New York City. But I did like in Afterlife how they were somewhere else because there's ghosts other places, not just New York City. But you know, it's very much the same. It fits well with the other Ghostbusters movies. Like nothing's out of the ordinary. It fits well.
Yeah, you guys bring up a lot of good points, and I do agree with a majority of what y'all are saying. Because you guys keep mentioning how it's like kind of just a natural progression for like the franchise to head this way. I think it would be kind of cool to like see in universe like the Ghostbusters become like this huge like nationwide corporation. So like you have Ghostbusters everywhere. You have Ghostbusters in New York, you have them in Chicago, you have them in San Francisco. You have all these different teams because we've never really seen the Ghostbusters expand to that level in any of the movies. It's always been this kind of just small team of scientists that kind of just start their own business and are localize it here in New York, and this movie kind of continues that trend. But it would be really interesting to see them reach that level of growth. So maybe if we get another Ghostbusters movie, like maybe that's something that film can explore because that's actually kind of exciting to think about. I would like to see a movie explore that aspect.
I mean, they could definitely expand into other places. I just worried that it would get too like this is probably not the right word, but corporate. Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
too Marvel-y or something along that line, like creating a big like alternate universe or connected, universe. I feel like it would be kind of weird For example, if you look at the Men in Black movies, right? You have the original trilogy, which is pretty good, and then they tried a new one and it feels disconnected. So if they were to do something like that, be like Ghostbusters in England, I feel like it would be really disconnected because Ghostbusters is such a like New York City like thing.
I do kind of feel like if they went way too corporate, it would just kind of end up feeling like Jurassic World, which like that was purposely like they made
Yeah,
it
that
super
too.
super corporate, because it was supposed to be like Verizon Wireless presents the yada 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 yada. And it's like it was supposed to be kind of like a commentary, like satirical kind of, because that's exactly what would happen in the real world. But I do kind of feel like in the Ghostbusters setting, it might not fit as well. Although it could be commentary on corporatism and America and capitalism, because like I don't know about the second one, but at least the first one for sure was commentary on like society and other things. But I don't know. I mean, I get what you mean, but also I mean, I'm just a casual Ghostbusters fan. I feel like it could be kind of fun to see Ghostbusters in England just to see like what they would be like or whatever. But I do feel like to some degree, like you have to keep things somewhat consistent. So like maybe it's like just another team of scientists or I don't know, something. But I do think it could be interesting to do something like that as opposed to it feeling like Men in Black International. But I don't know.
Could be interesting. It's just like they already kind of tried that with the 2016 Ghostbusters, where it's like, oh, we're just gonna try to do something different. And like the original cast was not really in that, or I don't even think many of the original creators of Ghostbusters was involved with that, and it felt odd and off. And that's maybe possibly one of the reasons it did not succeed very well or very much. So like it would be cool to see other Ghostbusters, other places. It's just whether not it would feel right, I guess. But we'll see. I'm sure they're gonna make another one.
Yeah, we'll see. So like Udi brought up a similar situation with Jurassic World. One of the cool things that I felt the first Jurassic World did with that idea was we actually got to see what the park was like when it was up and running and actually working. Like that was kind of cool. And like when I'm talking about like seeing the Ghostbusters like expand, I'm not necessarily saying the next movie should focus on like a Ghostbusters team in England or it should focus on a Ghostbusters team in Chicago. I just think it would be cool to just have that be like part of the film's world. Like just we're in this world where the Ghostbusters have like fully franchised out and have become this big ghost busting like corporation, you know? Like it would just be kind of cool to see an idea like that realized. But I also get what you guys were saying as well. A lot of the stuff you guys brought up also made a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean, I only said like the specific England example because that's like what Miranda said, but I mean, I kind of got that's what you meant when you were originally saying it. But yeah, I mean, even just knowing like they have a network of Ghostbusters in like each big city around the globe, and just knowing that was available for whatever thing, or if there were somehow to be another Ghostbusters movie, which I kind of doubt, unfortunately. Fortunately, unfortunately, depending on you ask, I don't know. It could be interesting if there was some sort of big, let's say, nationwide ghost issue or tri-state area ghost issue that they could call up their other Ghostbusters pals in the two nearby big cities and be like, "Hey guys, just so you know, this big demon's coming through this portal from hell, just so you know." And or I don't know, just like how you were saying, at least they're kind of there. We might not be with them a lot, or we may not even see them maybe, but just knowing that they're there fighting their own little fight or whatever, maybe even off screen. Just I don't know, interesting.
Exactly. And it's kind of funny because I know you brought up like, oh, there's a ghost coming through the portal of hell or whatever. Like I know you probably just brought that up as like a quick little example, but I'm pretty sure that like when Ghostbusters 3 was somewhat being conceived, I'm pretty sure like one of the ideas they had for that movie was sending the Ghostbusters to hell. So we that in some alternate dimension, that's what we got.
I feel like that would be fun.
I mean, they probably didn't do that because they sent Bill and Ted there, so it's like, we can't copy them.
Yeah. I mean, to be completely honest, the real reason why we never got Ghostbusters 3 was because of Bill Murray, but that's besides the point.
Is a difficult person to work with, so I've
Ye-
heard.
Yeah, so but all right. I want to kind of shift topics now. So this movie introduced a lot of different ideas that we've not really seen in previous Ghostbusters movies. So, perfect example is Camille Nanjiami's character. So, it's told throughout the movie that, like, I guess way back when there was this, like, ancient group of ghost busting people that would, like, capture malevolent spirits through fire. I forget what they're called, but like there was Ghostbusters in like ancient times, which is an interesting idea.
I
And
don't think
Camille,
they were Ghostbusters. I think they were just like the keepers of to make sure that like this demon thing didn't get out.
well, I'm not saying they were like Ghostbusters like Dan Aykroyd and Bill Murray were in a sense. I'm just saying that the idea is the same. Like
I
the idea of them
guess.
is the same. I mean, they're capturing ghosts. Like it's the same idea.
No, I don't think they're capturing ghosts.
They were basically just like an ancient tribe of Ghostbusters.
I think they're just capturing and making sure that this one specific entity isn't getting out. Like, I don't think they're just going around capturing ghosts.
Well, I thought they had said that they captured other malevolent spirits, not just this one specific one. But
I
I don't know.
mean, I
I've
don't
only
know.
seen the
I've only
movie.
seen it once.
Yeah, I was just about to say that as well. I've only seen it once, so
It's just like that just sounded odd. I was like, that sounds odd, but like, I don't know. Have to
yeah,
rewatch it
exactly.
to know for
E-
sure.
exactly. Yeah, we've all only seen it once, at least as far as I know. So unless you've seen it twice, Udi, but I,
Seen it 5 times in the last 3 days. I'm just kidding.
yeah,
I haven't. I haven't.
yeah. But so Camille Nanjami is like one of these like descendants. He's like a descendant of these people, and I guess these people are just firebenders because Camille Nanjami can like control fire. So like, well, not really in the sense that a firebender can control it, but like I guess he has to be towards like a source of flame. So in a way, it's kind of like how M. Night Shyamalan's firebenders worked, where they had to be near fire in order for them to bend it. So, but what did you guys think of Camille Nanjiami's character? Like, how did you feel? Do you feel that worked for like a Ghostbusters movie?
We talked about this the other day after we got out of the movies, and to me, like in terms of when it comes to classic franchises like this in the Indiana Jones, like I said before at the beginning of the episode, I I grew up knowing about these movies. I didn't really watch them till I was older, and so I've enjoyed them, and I you know I get I feel like I understand what people like enjoy out of these, but I also don't hold these movies in like a crazy high regard. Like, sure, they're classics, but I don't think they're 5-star movies. They're definitely not 5-star movies to me. Like, I enjoy them and they're fun and they are what they are. But like in terms of overall like cinema, like I don't feel like any of the Indiana Jones movies are 5-star movies. Like the first one I feel like has aged very well and it, probably
The
close
third
to a
one
5-star
is,
movie.
but we could
Oh
disagree on
yeah,
that.
for sure. Totally. But but yeah, so like that being said, when I go see a Ghostbusters movie, I'm not expecting to be wowed because I've never been wowed by a Ghostbusters movie, and I wouldn't expect to be wowed the same way. And not saying that they're the same because they're not, but in the same way, I wouldn't expect to be wowed by like a Fast and Furious movie because that's just not what you go and see a Ghostbusters or Fast and Furious movie for. You go because it's like a silly, fun, comedic adventure, and yeah, that's it for me at least. And so it's not really a crazy huge ask of me to believe that there would be like an ancient like society that was devoted to capturing either just one malevolent entity or multiple spirits or ghosts or whatever across time. Like, I don't know, it's not that big of an ask for me. I'd be like, okay, sure, why not? Ancient cultures exist. There's history of ancient cultures believing in malevolent spirits and entities and gods and whatever. Like, sure, why not? It makes sense to me the same way that aliens make sense to me in Indiana Jones because aliens are intertwined with ancient ruins and ancient civilizations, and it's just like it's not that big of an ask for me to believe that that could be a thing, given that this is a silly, wacky universe. Like this is not based at all in reality, so it's not that big of an ask to believe that like an ancient culture, since they don't have the technology, they can't have their own proton packs. Well, what would be an ancient civilization proton pack? Fire. Why not? Sure, why not? You know. So to me, it's not that big of an ask to think that that would be it. And so like Kumail Nanjiani's role in the movie, I don't know, like I really like Kumail Nanjiani, and I think he was one of the best comedic parts of the movie. He had great comedic timing as always. He was fun, and I just feel like his role was an interesting one. It was something brand new, and I can understand people not liking it or it being not being like their favorite thing in the movie, but to me, it didn't seem like a deal breaker. I was like, sure, why not? You know, it was a fun idea, kind of an ancient order of Ghostbusters. Whether or not that's accurate or not, again, we don't know because we've only seen the movie once. But going with that, assessment, I'm here for it. Why not? But that's just how I felt. What about you?
So, I also agree with you in that Camille Nanjiani is like great in this movie. I also really like Camille Nanjiani. He was definitely one of the best parts of this movie. I love the part where he's being interrogated by Peter Venkman, and like he's throwing pens at him, and he's like, "Why are you throwing pens at me?" or whatever. Like that was really
That was
funny.
so funny.
That was so good. That got a really good laugh out of me. But yeah, I don't know. Like you brought up some good points. Ghostbusters is a very silly, like wacky franchise. The first movie is a comedy. Like it doesn't really take itself that seriously. So it's not entirely out of left field for something like a firebending Camille Nanjiani to be in the movie. But I don't know. It just didn't really work for me personally. And I just feel like because I mean, obviously the Ghostbusters work with supernatural entities, and like Camille Nanjiani, I guess you could argue like has like a supernatural aspect to him. But even so, like the whole idea with the capturing ghosts has always kind of been based in science, like they come up with PKE signatures and readings to create these proton packs so they can capture these ghosts.
I mean, that's not a real science, you know.
Yeah, it's not real science. It's science fiction, but still. And then you bring in Camille Nanjiani, you can just firebend, and it's just like,
What
okay.
is what is magic if not science we don't understand yet?
Oh, you're quoting Thor on me,
Okay,
huh?
Thor.
I'm just saying, like,
Now I know how. What's the name of that actor who plays Dr. Selvig?
Stellan Skarsgård.
Now I know how he felt in that situation.
I mean, to have a guy have the ability to quote unquote firebend fire in a movie about ghosts and have people turn into dogs, demon dogs, like it's not a stretch.
Yeah, but I mean, the people turning into demon dogs is more of like possession, like like ghosts possessing people. Like this is just a guy with superpowers. Like it's literally superpowers. That's what it is. But I don't know. Just for me personally, I didn't really think that aspect of the film worked. I felt like it was a little too out there for me. But I mean, just depending on the type of person you are, like I could see it also not being that big of an issue. Because it's like Udi said, Udi, he's a casual fan. Like Ghostbusters is silly, like big, crazy, silly franchise. And this works for a big, silly, crazy franchise. But for me personally, like I don't know. I just didn't vibe with it too much.
Can I ask you something real quick, Dan?
Yeah, sure.
How would you feel if they brought in vampires to Ghostbusters?
I'd be here for it. I know you didn't ask me, but I'll be here for it.
I was gonna get to you after, but okay.
That I don't know how that would work because like what would they do to the vampires? Kill them with wooden stakes? Like you can't capture a vampire. They're not a ghost.
Well, no, I'm not saying they're ghosts. I'm just saying it's another supernatural element.
I don't know. I mean, it depends on how they would work it into the story, I guess, but I mean, I wouldn't vampires would be like the last thing I would expect in a Ghostbusters movie, personally. But because when I think Ghostbusters, I think of like demons and specters and ancient like supernatural monsters and stuff like that.
Isn't a vampire a supernatural creature?
I'm talking more of like ghosts, though. Like
A
the dead.
vampire is a ghost of their human selves.
That's a bit of a stretch.
I'm
Well,
just saying.
Either way, like when I
It would
think
be
of,
kind of weird though to have
yeah,
vampires in the
Yeah.
movie, but
and
Yeah, it
like
would.
werewolves.
Yeah. All
I don't know.
like no, yeah. I mean, that wasn't. It's not like a super serious question. I just wanted to ask because like it's in the ballpark of supernatural things. So I just wanted to get your. I wanted to read the room of like, well, how would you feel about this sort of supernatural thing? I mean, I agree with you. I think Ghostbusters primarily, given the name, is ghouls and ghosts and demons and supernatural entities and deities and whatever. And I feel like that works better than if they just did vampires. Like if vampires were like a side plot as like a result of like let's say, oh, Morg the Vampire King is this demonic entity that can give rise to an army of pale vampires when the blood moon rises. Like, okay, sure, that would work for like part of the movie, but as them just being like the main antagonist, no, that wouldn't work. But if it was because of like an evil ancient entity, like sure. So like that to me at least would work. But I guess that's kind of why I wanted to like see what you guys thought. Uh, I was gonna go in order, but so yeah, I don't know. What do you think, Miranda? Like
so it would
with
be
that?
like a consequence. Like in your hypothetical
Yeah,
movie plot. It'd be like if they show up, like it would be like a consequence of a like demon or whatever causing it.
yeah,
Whereas like they're not Dracula. They're just
yeah,
maybe humans who are starting to drink blood because they're being possessed or something.
Okay, when
yeah,
you put it in that sense, if like it's vampires as a consequence of an ulterior being, such as a demon or a demigod, like like Miranda said, possessing people and stuff like that, maybe turning them into vampires, I guess. I feel like that would work more than just straight up Edward Cullen appearing.
Why is it always Edward Cullen?
I'm sorry, that was the first vampire that came to mind.
Not Dracula?
You had already mentioned Dracula. I'm not going to steal your your suggestion.
Although, what could always make a movie better? Robert Pattinson. So, I like
I
I
Or
like
mean,
what you
Michael
I'm not
think.
going to
Sheen.
disagree with you.
He's in Twilight too, Michael Sheen.
Oh, is he?
He makes things better. Watch
Oh,
Good
Not as
Omens.
much as Robert Pattinson.
okay. So here's another idea that I just was not a fan of. And me and Udi had a good long discussion after we saw the movie about this specific scene. So Phoebe finds a way to temporarily like turn herself into a spirit per se. Think of it like Doctor Strange doing
Yeah,
what's it
that's right. Think of
what's
it
it
that way,
called?
Dan.
Think of it like Doctor what's it called? I don't even remember.
Spirit
Astral
walking?
projecting.
Oh, astral
That's what it's
projection.
called. Astral projecting. Think of it like Doctor Strange doing astral projecting. Now, when I saw the Marvels for the first time, I was like, yeah, this movie's great. Then I got to the singing planet. This is my singing planet for this film. This is the part of the movie where it kind of just sort of lost me. When Phoebe turned herself into a ghost, I was like, what is this? Like, what's going on here, man? Like, I don't know. Like, I personally did not really like that scene at all. I thought it was stupid. I'm sorry, but I did. I thought it was stupid. And yeah, I don't know. And once again, we were just talking about this earlier. I know Ghostbusters is a crazy and wacky franchise, and like you have 100-foot Stay Puft Marshmallow Men and freaking literally the Statue of Liberty, like walking through the streets of New York. I also really like that they referenced that at one point in the movie. That was cool. But you got stuff like that. But I don't know, just this scene just did not work for me. And I remember like after me and Udi had saw the movie, we were talking about this, and like he was bringing up some really good like counter arguments for like this scene. And like I couldn't really think of why it just didn't work for me. But I thought about it for a while, and I kind of feel like this is why it doesn't work, because when you have stuff like the 100-foot Stay Puft Marshmallow Man and the Statue of Liberty and stuff like that, it's the movie knows it's a joke, so it's playing it off as a joke. So it works better for me in that aspect. But this, I feel, isn't being played as a joke. Like this is a scene that's taking itself seriously. And I feel like that's why it doesn't work, because, like, for example, I'm not saying that this would have made the scene better. That's not what I'm saying. But, like, for example, if, like, let's say Bill Murray was turned into like a ghost or a spirit or whatever, and he was going around just like making jokes and messing with people, like, I feel like that would fit better in line for what I expect to come out of a Ghostbusters movie, because it's taking this like crazy idea and kind of just playing it off as a joke. But this is taking itself seriously, and I don't know. That scene was just weird, because, like, the idea behind it was that Phoebe has been talking with this ghost who's like the same age. She died when she was like Phoebe's age. So she first encounters her while playing checkers, like out in the park in the middle of the night, and they kind of like
It's
bond.
chess.
Or chess, yeah, chess, not checkers. Chess, yeah, they're playing chess with each other, and they kind of like bond, and they form a kind of friendship. And obviously, this ghost is tasked with using Phoebe, so like the big bad can like come to power and freeze over New York. Like, that's all part of his plan. But like they form kind of a bond. So when Phoebe becomes a spirit and is able to, like, I don't know, I guess, why does she become a spirit exactly? Like, what was the point? Like, was it to like just experience it? Because she could already interact with her ghost friend,
She just
but
to be on the same plane as someone who, like, understood her and got her, cause like, her whole family and everyone is like, "Nah, you can't be a Ghostbuster, like, sorry, we're benching you. Like, we understand you're passionate." So when she finds a ghost who, like, actually takes a little time to, like, listen to her and, like, they form a bond, to be in the same place, or in this case, the same dimension, is something important, I guess, something that people would desire. So, for example, when we hang out, because we do live far away from each other, I always like hanging out in person because it's different. So I think that's where Phoebe is like, I want to hang out with this person on the same level in the same space.
makes
At least
sense.
that's how I read it.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that does make sense, but I just felt a little weird during that scene, because like the music and the way she was like walking up to the ghost girl, like, I don't know, I thought she was gonna like kiss her for a second, and I was like, what's going on? Like, I don't know. That's just how I felt, but that didn't happen, thankfully. But yeah, what were you gonna
Well,
say, Udi?
that's what I was gonna bring up, was that I was kind of getting the read that Phoebe had a crush on the ghost girl because, like, they were bonding and they were kind of, being a little flirty with each other, like being sarcastic with each other, being very dry with each other, and like they were there to kind of support each other in, I guess moments of need. I guess the ghost is kind of always in the moment of need because she's a ghost, but I think they came from very different backgrounds. It was almost like Romeo and Juliet in a way. Like they come from backgrounds where it doesn't make sense for them to be together, but or to be attracted to each other even, but like they just do. They like each other. Now, is that 100% guaranteed? No. But I could also believe that they didn't want to lean too much into that, because then they would risk angering a certain subsect of trash humanity. But I kind of got that vibe for sure as well. I also thought that they were gonna go for, like, I thought Phoebe was gonna try to kiss her or hold her hand or something, and then like that didn't happen. But yeah,
Yeah, and I just want to clarify that, like, if that would have happened, I probably would not have liked it, not because Phoebe has a crush on her. Like, I don't like, if they want to, have Phoebe like girls, that's fine. But it's just the idea of like a human in a Ghostbusters movie becoming a spirit and like making out with a ghost. That's just a weird idea to me personally. But that's just me.
yeah. So I guess to give my thoughts real quick on this whole thing, I mean, again, to me, like, this seems like the least ask in this whole movie to me, which is like that's why I was kind of shocked that this was such a sticking point for you because like the reason that ghosts exist, at least because of the way that people believe that they exist, is because humans contain like energy, which is a spirit. And so when a person dies, like their human body dies, their spirit is released and either like goes to heaven, goes to hell, stays in purgatory, becomes a ghost, like whatever you want to believe, whatever the circumstances are like, that's what happens. So, and like or it's like their soul, like whatever. So the fact that like in the Ghostbusters universe, like they're extracting like ghosts from an object, like it just makes sense to me. Like why would they not be able to extract someone's spirit or soul from their body, which is what this was. Like they extracted her spirit from her body, her living body, and like her body is just a vessel. So it basically is like the human body is just like a vessel. It's just kind of like an urn, I guess, in a way. Like obviously it's living tissue and whatever, but it's just holding the spirit. So it just doesn't make sense to me why it wouldn't make sense to be able to take the spirit out and you could like astral project basically or spirit walk and be on the plane of other spirits that are roaming the earth. I don't know. It made sense to me. It didn't bother me in the slightest, but that's just how I felt about it.
Well, I would also like to clarify. It's not that the idea doesn't make sense to me. It's just I personally, now once again, this is just me. I personally don't feel that idea belongs in a Ghostbusters movie. Like maybe if that idea was explored in like a different franchise, sure, but I just don't think it belongs in a Ghostbusters movie. But once again, that's me. We each have our different tastes, so
Yeah. And I mean that's fair. And like I don't know. I guess it was kind of like going to the conversation that we had a little bit the other day too of like I mean if it had happened in the originals, would you mind or would you think it was silly or would you care? And I don't know. Like I mean I don't know how you'd feel about that if that had happened in the originals, but like for me I like I said, I mean I don't think it would make a difference to me because and I'm not saying like you just explained, like you're saying that you can understand it, and so it's not that. But like to me, it just makes sense that it would be a possibility given the technology that they have and the advancements they've made in ghost busting since the 80s or whatever. But yeah, I mean, I can understand not being a fan of the creative idea of doing it, I guess. But to me, it does kind of make sense. Like if it didn't happen in this movie, I could totally see it being like a plot point of another movie or something. But I don't know.
that's what I just said. I feel like it would work better in like another movie. I just don't
Well,
think
and
it
I don't
works
mean
for
another
Ghostbusters.
franchise. I mean like this franchise, but in another
Oh,
future
you're talking
installment.
about this franchise.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, well, I don't know then.
What about you, Miranda?
I thought it was fine. I was like, "Oh, neato, cool. I guess they can do that. It makes sense. They can take spirits out of objects, so like for them to like take her spirit out of her body temporarily kind of made sense. Reminds me of Danny Phantom. Great show. When he goes in,
That is a
through
good
the
show.
phantom tube. So I was like, okay, sure. Seen this before in ghost content, so and like Ghostbusters is not serious in any way, so for them to do these like kind of silly, ridiculous things, it, like I said earlier, fits really well with like the Ghostbuster franchise as I perceive it. Now, other people might perceive it in a different way, but it fits.
If it fits, it sits.
Yes, because the Ghostbusters franchise is cats.
Exactly. That's all they need.
I'm surprised there hasn't been a cat ghost or something yet.
There
They
was a
had
possessor possessing a lion, and a lion is
this is true.
That's
a
true.
cat.
I did like that
So
scene, by the way. That was cool.
it's a
Yeah.
I
good scene.
also, I also like the scene afterwards where Winston is like, "The New York Library Lions, why?"
You know how hard it is to get kids to go to libraries nowadays?
Yeah.
Oh, oh, I I like the fact that Although kind of weird, I like the fact that the mayor is the EPA guy from the original one. I was
Oh
like, "Wow,
yeah.
he literally spent his whole life to get into a position where he can literally tell the Ghostbusters to go away." Like,
Yeah, that
his
I agree
life
with
goal
you.
or something.
I agree with you, Miranda. That was pretty good. I like how they did that as well.
Also, to answer Paul Rudd's character's question on who puts bikes there, that would be city planners who are designing mobility hubs and to make sure that there is non-car transport for pedestrians. Just to answer that question, I'm sure no one even remembers that joke at the beginning of the movie or whatever, but, there's your answer.
Well, there you go. So we just mentioned the New York Library Lions. They get possessed by a ghost type called the Possessor. I mean, the movie really doesn't explore too many of the different ghost types, but we do kind of get a peek at different ghost types that exist thanks to that one scene we get where they're exploring that research division. What did you guys think about the different ghost types that the movie introduces? Like, I liked the idea of the possessor. I think that idea is just ripe for a whole bunch of like fun moments. Like you have the New York City Lions, the New York Library Lions. I also really like the idea of the Ecto One getting possessed and like the Ghostbusters having to fight the Ecto One. Like that was a cool idea. I enjoyed that. Like near the climax of the movie. So yeah, I mean, what did you guys think of that?
What were the other they introduced? Because I really only remember the Possessor
Yeah, see that's the thing is because like they had that one like really creepy looking ghost as well,
and the
like behind
shadows.
the in the shadows that like
Yeah.
almost escaped and whatnot. But see, that was the thing is they really didn't introduce like they didn't really explore the different ghost types, but the idea of it's pretty cool at least.
It'd be interesting to see the other ghost types because obviously we've gotten full body apparitions and the possessor. I did like the possessor's little room where he just kept shooting back and forth between all this stuff, and I was like, oh, that kind of makes possessors a little less freaky in my brain. Be like,
Yeah.
it's just a little red dot who's literally just bouncing back and forth like a tennis ball.
Yeah, I agree. What about you, Udi? Did you like the idea of like having all these like different ghost types?
Yeah, I mean, I liked it. That's like I said earlier, this was kind of one of the only disappointments I had with this movie is they introduced numerous different ghost types, and I thought they would all come in to play at some point in some way in the third act. Like not necessarily like a big epic crazy action scene or something, but just in some way. Like I thought the entity would recruit them and give them specific purposes, kind of like how the possessor got, but like all of them or something. Um, because I mean, like it's like Chekhov's gun, like they introduced them and then they didn't use them, so it just felt weird. Um, I guess like maybe they were just planting the seeds for the future in case they made another sequel and then they could like use them or something. I don't know, but I liked it. I thought it was cool. I thought it was like a fun little way to flesh out the universe and give us like a few more ghost designs. But I think as a whole, like this whole franchise, I do kind of feel like the one aspect I've wanted more from and that I don't feel like any of the movies have really delivered on is actually like spending most of the movie like truly like ghost busting or introducing like ghosts that are actually threatening or and maybe that's not what this franchise is about and that's fine, but like for me like I feel like and this might come out the wrong way and so just you listen with caution I guess, but like I feel like a fun sequel not necessarily to this but just like a future potential Ghostbusters movie would be like a bit more quote unquote action filled, and by that I just mean like more of the movie spent like actually like ghost busting. Like let's say some entity gets let loose, kind of like how this was, but like actually seeing it happen. Like let's say the movie starts out and the Ghostbusters fail and this dangerous ancient entity releases and they raise like an army of ghosts. And so like you just have all these ghosts out and about and they have to like stop them all. Like getting to at least see some of that would have been cool. And getting to see different ghost types and doing that stuff.
I feel like that's just the woman Ghostbuster movie, because
I haven't seen
there's a
that one
whole
yet.
oh, Because the whole end thing is a bunch of random ghosts out in New York City, and they have to, like, fight their way to the big bad.
Gotcha.
So, maybe check that one out.
Yeah, I mean, I do want to watch it. So yeah, I'll maybe it's what I've been missing and what I've been looking for this whole time.
Yeah, maybe. Um,
Yeah, I don't know if people would agree with you on that, but that's
No, yeah,
besides
it
the
was kind
point.
of I was kind of said sarcastically, but like I mean, the
Yeah.
idea of that is what I've kind of been describing. So I mean, I might
Yeah.
like
yeah.
that part, but the first one and Afterlife have like the same exact like villain and the whole like basically the same setup. So like in that regard, it's kind of removing a whole movie from the franchise of like they're doing the same thing, so it's a little lame. Like sure, it's Palpatine, he's back and stronger, but like okay.
Do you
So
feel that way with Force Awakens?
not that one as much to me,
Okay.
because I felt like it was different enough. I mean, Palpatine isn't really there that much. Well, not Palpatine. The Palpatine of the movie, which is Snoke, isn't really there. Like his presence is there, but we don't really get to. He's not really a true character in that one. He's just kind of there. And I liked Kylo. I thought he was different enough from the other, like Darth Vader and like I guess Anakin. He's not really he's Darth Vader obviously, but like you know what I mean.
Yeah, yeah.
Um and like the other Sith that we saw that I felt like he was kind of fun, and I liked Adam Driver's performances and all of them, blah blah blah. So like I thought it was different enough that I didn't mind the similarities, even though like obviously there's a lot of similarities, and that I liked the introduction of the characters. Like seeing that when that came out was super exciting. Seeing it now was really depressing because it went nowhere. But yeah,
Interesting. Because, like, even though Afterlife does have the same villain, I feel like it's still, like, a completely different, like, movie.
well, I'm
It
not
doesn't.
saying like the movie. I'm just saying in terms of like what I'm talking about, which is the third act, like the antagonist. That's what I'm talking
Yeah,
about.
yeah.
Yeah, like it removes that movie from feeling like its own thing because it's the exact same enemies as in the first one. Like it's the exact
Yeah.
same spirit and everything. But like the movie itself stands on its own.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess like the point I was getting at is like I've been wanting a movie like that, and we haven't gotten a movie like that. Maybe seemingly the 2016 one is. I don't know. I'll have to watch it. But so yeah, so like it's getting to see the new ghosts and spirits, whatever you want to call them, like that was cool. But like I was disappointed that they weren't used or utilized in a more interesting way. And like the thing that I would want from a future Ghostbusters movie, not necessarily the next one whenever if that ever comes out, but like maybe another the sequel to that one or something could be a bit more expansive and do something like this, but actually do it and not spend most of the movie building up to it and then not really doing it. Which again, I mean, I do understand the point of like what Miranda brought up earlier of like some people might not want that. Some people might not think that that has a place in this franchise. And I get that. Some people don't want to have to like sit through the Ghostbusters, just spending the whole movie like taking down the ghosts of New York and just like have it be like a war movie, but like with Ghostbusters. Like I'm not saying that like that's the vibe I'm looking for either, but like I understand not wanting it to be like a huge big battle type thing. Like I get it, but like for me, I just think it'd be something different and something kind of fun. And it wouldn't have to be serious either. Like it could still be like the same sort of like there's some serious elements and then you get like a silly moment where I don't know, it's like a silly setup and like they're just capturing these silly new spirits that they've never encountered before or something. I don't know. But like I just think it would be interesting and I'm disappointed they haven't done more with variety of spirits. I guess the super long-winded way of what I was trying to get at. So, my apologies.
I will agree. I do like what you're kind of cooking up right there. Like I do think a Ghostbusters movie that kind of focuses more just on the ghostbusting aspect of it. Like just the entire movie is them going around like fighting and capturing ghosts and whatnot. Like I'd be down for that. That sounds like fun to me personally. Like I'd like to see that.
You liking what I'm cooking?
I do.
But I'm actually kind of curious because I feel like uh because you had that point earlier, Miranda, like in your mind, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, like in your mind, what would the perfect ending to like a Ghostbusters movie be for you? Like would you want something more in line like with what we've gotten where like just before the big bad entity does like the thing that they're trying to do, they get shut down and it's just yay, we won. Or like what would be a perfect Ghostbusters third act for you? Or maybe just like overall movie, not necessarily like just third act, but maybe like overall movie.
Ghostbusters Afterlife? That one. I mean, I like the fact that it's usually just some guys or a family or some friends um fighting a singular ghost. Like I find it very interesting because it is kind of different, and I think probably back in the day they went that route because of special effects and stuff. The 80s. They probably didn't have. I mean, they probably spent all their budget on the claymation of the dogs. So, um, I think if you want to make something that fits into Ghostbusters by having like the third act be like the team fighting against the big bad makes sense. I think to like what you were talking about, a scene where they're like fighting several different ghosts could be interesting, maybe not in the third act, but like I think in the first one, yeah, in the first one they do like that whole montage thing where they're like just going after ghosts. So it'd be like nice to kind of see that. But I feel like that would also get kind of repetitive to see like them being like going to like the houses, getting the ghosts and stuff. So like there's probably a balance to mix like the way that Ghostbuster movies usually end. I don't remember how the second one ends cuz I did not watch that one yesterday cuz when I got home I watched I saw Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. And then I was like, "Oh, we should watch Ghostbusters." And then I watched Ghostbusters Afterlife. So I did not watch the second one. But like I'm sure there's a way to balance the more actiony like type of ghost hunting. Just not sure how they would like do that, I guess. But since you asked like what my ideal ish type of Ghostbusters movie or ending would be, I really like Ghostbusters Afterlife. So, something along those lines.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I liked Afterlife. I thought it was a fun movie, so yeah, I can understand.
Yeah. I just find the ending of that movie very touching.
Yeah, it is.
Like, I know it was a little weird to be like, "Oh, he died." Like, what are they using old footage? Like, the whole weird, not weird, the whole like uh ethical, I guess could be the right word, situation on when you cannot use a person's likeness in a film, stuff like that. But like I think that whole part was handled really well. So,
Yeah. What about you, Dan? What would your perfect Ghostbusters movie be?
That's a good question, actually. My perfect Ghostbusters movie. Well, once again, a lot of the ideas we've been discussing, I like some of the ideas you guys have brought up. I like the idea of just having a movie where they're just going around capturing ghosts and we get to see what these different ghost types are like. Like just being able to explore like the world of ghosts more with Ghostbusters cuz I just feel like we don't get to see a lot of ghosts in the Ghostbusters movie outside of like a couple seconds of some ghosts here and there, because like in the first Ghostbusters movie, I mean, we see a lot of Slimer, but it's pretty much just Slimer, the Demon Dogs, and then Gozer, and then the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. Ghostbusters 2. I mean, you get the like, I think they're called the Spaghetti brothers at like the courtroom scene, so you get to see them for a little bit, and then you have some fun with Vigo, but like, you don't really get to see like too many different ghosts. I mean, you get to see like some pop up here and there, but they're just like short, like 1 second like appearances. And then Afterlife pretty much kind of just, you know, did the same thing as the first Ghostbusters movie. And so like being able to like just explore different ghosts and to see more of them, like that would be really cool. So something like that, and then I guess like a good climax. I kind of like what Miranda was saying, where instead of having like this big like Avengers Endgame style like huge battle, like maybe scale it back a bit and just have it be like four, just one group taking on this like big entity, like something like that's always nice. Because I feel like a lot of the Ghostbusters movies kind of end the same, so we're the like everybody just the core ghost busting group just kind of comes together and defeats the big bad ghost or demigod or whatever crazy enemy they're facing. So like I've never had too much of an issue with how the other Ghostbusters movies have ended. So I think having an ending in that similar vein like that would also work fine for me as well.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So then, now that we've talked about our potential dream Ghostbusters movie and bringing it back to this one, did you guys have a favorite part of this movie?
I would say probably the New York City Lion, like the New York Library Lion fight scene. I liked that. That was a fun little scene. And like I said, I liked Winston's reaction afterwards and whatnot. Like that was a lot of fun. And I don't know, I thought the effects, like seeing those like lions like come to life or whatever, like those, I thought that was kind of cool. Like that was a cool effect.
It gave me Night at the Museum vibes.
You know what? That's true. Yeah.
You're like, oh, we're in New York City. Is a lion coming to life? Like, those are great movies. Well, the first and second one are. I don't remember the third one. But anyways, I did like that scene too. It was very fun. I like the fact that the librarian at the library was like, "You are banned here. You cannot come 50 feet within this
Yeah.
library. Go away." But then they just walk in.
I just want to say, fun fact, that's the same guy that was in the first Ghostbusters movie that appears at the very beginning.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
I don't know if you remember him, but he's the guy that's like in the room with them while they're interrogating the librarian lady.
Yeah. That makes sense. Be like, "Yeah, I know you people. You're not allowed here."
Exactly, yeah.
I did like the old library that's under the library. I find that very fascinating, especially as someone who likes the show and the TV movies The Librarians. It gave that vibe to it, and like with the whole taking your ghost self out of your body thing. It's just like that type of librarians, DC's Legends of Tomorrow, like vibe that I enjoy that. So like that whole section was very very fun to me.
What about you, Udi? Did you have any favorite parts, if any?
Yeah, I think the part where Phoebe becomes a ghost. I'm just kidding.
I was gonna say you're saying that just to spite me, aren't you?
Yeah. I did really like the part. I mean, like the I thought the funniest part probably was the scene we were talking about earlier, where Bill Murray is questioning Kumail Nanjiani's character, and then he just throws a freaking pen at him, and it looks like he hits him so hard with it, and he's just like, "Ow! Why would you do that?"
Yeah.
That
Camille
part was funny.
Nanjiani's face too when it happened, because you like just see his eyes like open wide, and he just has like the surprise look. He's like, "Oh!" Like it's just Camille Nanjiani, man. Just he makes that scene work so well.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that like that part is probably like my favorite like comedic scene in the movie. And then I like this is not like my favorite part of the movie, but on like another fun comedic scene that I liked was when they first show up to his apartment and then he's just like walking through everything and like talking about like, "Oh, you want to buy that? How much you want to give me for that?" Like that was like a fun bit.
It's like, I can't part with that, but how about $50?
Yeah.
Yeah, like that part.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
I will admit, while I don't really like the idea of Camille Nanjiani's character,
with
he's
the
just
fire
so good in
master.
he's just so good in the movie that he's probably one of my favorite characters. Like
Yeah.
I love him in this movie.
I feel like if he hadn't done the firebending thing, he might have been your favorite part of the movie. Like if without
You're
that, I feel
probably
like you
you're
would like that.
probably right, honestly. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I liked him. He was definitely my favorite part of the movie for sure. Kumail's character in that scene in his apartment reminded me. like the most random thing, but reminded me of Sam Witwicky from the first Transformers movie. How he's trying to sell all of his grandfather's like old like sailor equipment, and then like it's he gives his presentation in class, like shows off his grandfather's glasses, and he's like he starts offering like prices to people. It's like, oh, I'm selling all this on eBay, by the way, if you want to look me up or whatever. And then he's like trying to get someone to buy like some item like right at the end of class before his teacher's like, hey, come here, and then he's like giving him his grade for the presentation. I don't know. That was it's kind of a random reference, but that was like the first thing I thought of. It's been a while since I feel like we've seen a character in like a big movie that's just trying to sell a bunch of old things like that. I don't know.
Yeah, I can see the similarities.
I don't remember that part in Transformers.
Yeah, it was
It
like
was
at
like
the
the very
very
beginning.
beginning. Yeah.
Well, I haven't seen the movie in like a really long time.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
fair.
I should rewatch that movie. I remember liking it.
I watched the first Transformers movie religiously when I was in like the fourth and fifth grade because
Yeah.
it's a long story, but basically I didn't have my PlayStation plugged in, so I didn't play video games for like at least for a while. And so all I had was this portable DVD player that I could like plug into the wall, and I would watch movies on it. And I didn't have that many movies, so I'd watch like Spider-Man 1 or Transformers, and I'd already watched Spider-Man 1 a lot when I was growing up, so I really just watched Transformers and like Iron Man 2. So anyway, yeah, I guess my favorite part of this movie though, aside from like the comedic part I mentioned with Bill Murray and Kumail Nanjiani, is probably I guess just the I feel like I'm forgetting a part. Like I liked the part at the museum, that was fun, but to just like name something different, I feel like just the intro to the Ghostbusters headquarters that Winston set up. Like I feel like that part was pretty fun because it was getting introduced to like this new world building part and getting to see the new ghosts and seeing sort of like advanced Ghostbusters tech. Like it's pretty similar, but just like slightly more advanced. I thought that was kind of cool, and I'll just stick with that because I can't remember enough of the movie to pinpoint other scenes.
No, dude, you bring up a really good choice with that whole introduction to the paranormal research division that Winston had, because it was at that part in the movie when I was watching it where I was like, this movie's great so far. Like, why are people hating it? Like, that was the part of the movie that really got me to like the first two acts. Like, because that was just so interesting to me. Like, it's cool, you know? So I really like that part as well.
Yeah, it makes sense. And I remember I looked over at one point and I was like, okay, he seems like he's digging this movie. And then that's why at the end I was like, oh no, you didn't like it. But that's
Yeah.
fair.
I think it's time we talk about the film's ending. How did you guys feel about the movie's ending? Like, was it satisfying for you? Did you not like it that much? Was it meh? How did you guys feel? And I'm talking mainly about like the third, just like the whole like final like battle with that big like I don't know. Do you guys remember what that thing was called? That ghost, the like evil ice ghost. I don't remember.
I really don't,
Yeah.
honestly.
I
But
I do want to say before we comment on this, I did like that thing's design. Like the horns were
yes,
cool. I liked
the fingers.
the fingers were really good, especially how they were like black because it's like, you know, frostbitten hands. Like really cool design.
And on the note of the horns, I really liked like the stop motion sort of animation that it had. I don't know if it was or it was just emulated to look like that, but like when he puts his horns on for the first time after getting him from Kumail's apartment, like that looked so cool. And then like whenever it was just like the shots of like just his hand in frame, like his long like spiky fingers, like that was really cool too. He wasn't scary but at all, but like he had like a creepy design, which is cool. I liked that.
I agree.
Yeah, I just want to say real quick, I kind of agree with Miranda if I was younger, it would probably creep me out a bit.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, 100%. But I agree. I do like the Frozen Ghost Guy's design. It's a very good character design or monster design. Would he be a kaiju? He's quite tall, but he can fit in a firehouse, so I'm not really sure.
No.
No.
Anyways, I do like the design, and I like the design of like the other ghosts that like show up to like I'm including Afterlife in this because they do all feel kind of like the original ghosts in the first movie. They have that like same feel. And just a side note, I like the fact that they used the old school Ghostbusters intro title card. That was really neat to see.
Yeah, I just want to say real quick, the only thing that was missing was the Ghostbusters theme, which didn't play. It's like, oh,
It played at the end
it played at the end, but I
in
wanted
the
it to play
credits.
during the title sequence. But that's just that's doesn't mean anything.
I
So
don't know. I feel like that would have kind of been out of place.
I don't care if it would have been out of place. It's classic.
That's why they put it in the credits. Oh, and also side note, I like the fact that they included real Ghostbuster merchandise commercials. I feel like that's a real commercial about kids eating Ghostbuster themed cereal. I really
Yeah,
liked
that
that.
was a cool Easter egg. I liked how they did that as well.
Yeah. But I guess we were talking about the creature design of the big bad ghost. So I thought that was cool. And then we were going to talk about the climax, right?
Yeah, kind of like how did you feel about like the film's ending, like the big like battle there at the end? Did you like it? How did you feel about it?
I mean, I thought it fit with all the other Ghostbusters. I feel like I kind of touched on that earlier when we were discussing what kind of Ghostbusters movie we would want to see. But I think it fits in there, and I like the fact that everyone froze, but then they got unfroze, and they were just perfectly okay. They no one really died. So I feel like they would have not. It would not have gone over well if they like killed all of New York City. So the fact that when you get defrosted, you're pretty much okay is pretty neat. I'm glad they did that.
That would have been a big bummer if everyone just dies at the end.
Yeah. That's kind of thought what I thought was gonna happen because like you see the whole beach and all the people there freeze.
Yeah, that's true.
So
Two quick things. So, adding on to like the creature design aspect, I also liked the idea of like the death chill, like that. Even in the trailers, that's kind of a cool idea. Like literally being scared to death, or like, yeah, that's what they said. Like being scared to death because like if if you scared, like you freeze or whatever. Like I thought that was kind of a cool concept as part of like the monster, I guess. Obviously isn't what happened in the movie, but how would you guys have felt if this movie ended as like a downer, like they failed and he did break into the vault and then he let all the ghosts escape and like it just ends with them being like, "Oh no, what do we do?"
That would be an interesting setup for the next movie. Like, I would give them credit. I would give them credit for that. Like, that would be a very interesting, like, that would make me be like, okay, now I want to see what happens in the next movie. Like, that would be a very good setup, I feel personally. So I would give them credit for that.
it would be an interesting choice. And I don't think it would fit with the Ghostbusters. Like, I don't know. They're supposed to be like light-hearted and comedic and stuff, and I feel like that's just be really dark.
That makes sense. But I will say the big risk you take with that is if, yeah, because Zudi, you've been saying you don't know if we're going to get another movie. So, like, if they were to set up on a cliffhanger ending like that and then we don't ever get another movie, like, that would suck.
That's why it's the end of the franchise because they failed and they're all gonna die.
Oh my God. Yeah, no, I agree with Miranda there at that point. Then that does not fit the Ghostbusters.
Just end it on a sour note. Why not? No, I mean, yeah, I that's definitely why that didn't happen because they didn't pretend to believe that they were gonna be able to do like a two-parter ending or something. Like there's no unfortunately, there's just no universe where I feel like this movie would have done that well. I don't know how you could make like a 4 or 5 star movie Ghostbuster movie like for general audiences. Like, sure, you could probably please Ghostbusters fans and make a 4 to 5 star Ghostbuster movie, but I don't think that that would be a 4 to 5 star Ghostbuster movie for general audiences. So I just don't think that like this franchise is probably going to be shelved for a while, like a good long while, if not indefinitely. And maybe they'll do other media like shows or video games or something. Because I mean, you can't just let an IP die. At least that's what looking at it from the corporate perspective. But
You gotta sell the toys.
Yeah, or
Yeah.
toys
Well,
too.
it's
Yeah.
interesting you mentioned that, Udi. So I was, just scrolling through Twitter. Twitter's never a reliable source, but I did just see like a report that apparently they're developing an animated series for a Ghostbusters animated series for Netflix.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense. That I feel like a lot of the studios have done that with like their IP, like Pacific Rim or Godzilla, stuff like that, because it's just a lot lower budget, it's lower stakes, and it's just keeping the IP alive, I guess, keeping it out there, but not really committing to doing like a big thing with it. So that makes sense. And I mean, I guess like the big thing too is I think they just don't know what their audience is. Like, I feel like when I think Ghostbusters, and this is not, I don't mean you, Dan, but like when I generally think of Ghostbusters fan, I think of like older guys. Like, I don't really feel like I see or hear that many. I do think it's more because the original movies were more, I guess, male centric. Like, it was a lot of like guy humor, quote unquote, and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So I mean, it makes sense, but I don't feel like they've been able to capture like like a true new audience. And so like with these last two, they tried to make them more like family movies, and like it kind of worked, I guess. Like they worked as family movies, but I still don't feel like it's not gonna be like Frozen. Families aren't gonna be like, all right, let's get in the car, let's go see Ghostbusters. Like, I don't think that that is gonna happen. I don't think that is happening. I don't think that has happened with the last one either. So I just don't feel like they know what to do. Like, I don't think that they're like, I don't think they want to only try to make a movie for their older audience, which makes sense because that would be a pretty small audience. But I don't feel like they know how to market for a newer audience, like a Gen Z audience, or even like a kid audience, even for like making like a more family centric Ghostbusters movie that's more rounded out for everyone. Like I don't think they know how to do that. So um I don't know when we'll see another Ghostbusters movie, but yeah.
Well, Udi, you're not wrong in saying that like most Ghostbusters fans are just like older men that grew up with those movies in the 80s. Like they were there when those movies first hit the scene and were very popular. I feel like, and I could be wrong, but I feel like I'm more of an exception because I was born at the tail end of the 90s. Like I wasn't
Yeah.
there for the first Ghostbusters movie, but I'm still a huge fan because I watched those movies as a kid. So, and it's
Yeah.
not like anyone even really introduced me to Ghostbusters. Like I always had heard. Well, I shouldn't say that. I shouldn't say that actually. Never mind. But still, like like I'm more of the exception. And yeah, you're right. It's just because here's the thing: all Ghostbusters fans wanted was Ghostbusters 3. That's all we wanted, and we never got it. We kind of got it in video game form with the 2009 game Ghostbusters the video game, but that's all we really wanted. And despite what some people may tell you, that's why there were huge issues with the 2016 movie because we want Ghostbusters 3. We don't want a reboot. Like, I was against the reboot when it was announced. And if it would have been an all male cast, I still would have been against it at that time because I didn't want a reboot. I just wanted Ghostbusters 3. If they would have just given fans Ghostbusters 3, I think it would have been fine and they could have, we could have ended the franchise on a satisfying note like that. But they tried to reboot it in 2016. That didn't work out. And then it's like what you said, Udi. They're trying to like make it more into like a family film. And like it kind of worked with Afterlife because Afterlife was like a mild success. It was successful enough to warrant a sequel. But yeah, I don't know about this movie. Like you're probably not wrong in like this might be the last Ghostbusters movie we see for a while. So
I appreciate their effort in trying to capture a new audience and trying to capture, a new interest, I guess, a new stake in this reboot. Well, not really rebooted, but this new version of Ghostbusters. But yeah, it doesn't really seem like they were able to do that. I don't feel like it garnered enough attention from anyone to keep it going. But
yeah. And like the idea of what Afterlife tried to do is what we sort of wanted. Like if the 2016 movie wouldn't have been a reboot, and I know we've had this conversation before, but if the 2016 movie wouldn't have been a reboot and it would have just been a passing of the torch, I feel like it would have been received a little better. Like you still would have had your misogynists out there that don't want, women in Ghostbusters uniforms, but I feel like for a majority of the fan base, myself included, it would have been received a little better if it just would have been a passing of the torch and not a reboot.
Yeah, and that makes sense. And I understand that. And I feel like you said, I just feel like what people really wanted out of the franchise was just Ghostbusters 3. And the fact that they never did that, I feel like it's always to some degree always gonna prevent, and maybe not, but that's just how I feel. It's gonna prevent especially older Ghostbusters fans from being able to enjoy future movies. Like I'm not saying that's your problem. I'm just saying like from what I've seen online, it just seems like that's always going to be the thing of they never got the trilogy that they wanted. They never got that closure. So every other thing that comes out that's not that is always going to be disappointing and they're never going to be satisfied. But
Well,
that's
the
just how I feel.
unfortunate thing about that is that's just never going to happen because
Well, yeah.
Harold Ramis is dead, so you can't.
Yeah.
We're never going to get that, and that's why I appreciate what Afterlife tried to do. Like Afterlife tried to kind of have that closure for us, and I do appreciate that about that movie.
Yeah, and I definitely felt like it was trying to do it respectfully and all that. But just to bring it all back, and so we can move on because we've been talking about I've been talking about something completely different this whole time. My apologies. How I felt about the climax. I like the climax. I mean, like kind of how you said it, and I also said it in another part earlier. All the movies kind of end the same. So like when it got to the thing of like, oh, are they actually gonna like release all the ghosts? Like, how's this movie gonna end? Like, how much more runtime do we have? I don't remember this movie being like that long. And then it just got to like, oh, are they gonna actually lose? And then it didn't, and then the entity got captured and blah blah blah. I was like, oh, okay. Like it wasn't it wasn't bad. I don't think it was a bad ending. It just felt kind of anticlimactic, and I was kind of looking forward to seeing what that chaos would be like, and then not getting that was a little disappointing. But for what it was, I thought it was fine. I thought it was better than doing a rehash of the first one like Afterlife did. But again, like I don't mean to keep like ragging on that. Like that was fine. I wish they'd have done something a little bit differently. And that might be hypocritical because I don't think the Force Awakens is as bad, whatever. But whatever. But I thought this was fine for what it was, and I liked it in a way. And I think Rand said this earlier. I think this movie did kind of feel like it captured that sort of like '80s movie vibe more than the previous one did to me, and especially like at the ending. Like the ending kind of did just feel like, oh, we're celebrating our heroes. Oh, they got to keep doing what they're doing. Let's go. Like, I don't know. I just had kind of like an '80s vibe ending to me. But yeah, I thought it was fine.
Yeah, I mean, I want to say that I'm more in line with what you're saying. Like, I didn't think the ending was bad, but there was just certain things that just happened in the ending that I was like, okay, like why? Like, because it was revealed, and I know we talked about this after we saw the movie, but it was revealed that like that ancient tribe, they used brass to kind of like trap the ghosts. So Phoebe comes up with this cool idea of like melting down brass and like outfitting her proton pack with it because it's been revealed earlier in the movie that standard proton packs do not work against this new enemy. Like he literally just freezes the proton streams and they crumble. So like Phoebe comes up with this idea to put brass in the proton streams because maybe that would work. And there's a point in the ending where literally, what's the name of the actress? I think it was Celeste. Celeste. I don't know how to. I don't know if it's pronounced Celeste or Celeste.
Maybe
But
Celeste.
yeah, Celeste O'Connor's character like literally tells everybody in the room, our proton streams don't work against this thing. So what do? They all shoot their proton streams at it, and what happens? It freezes and it crumbles, and they all get frozen. Like, why would they all try shooting the ghost after they were just told that it wouldn't work. We're thinking, oh, well, all of us combined, maybe it'll work. Maybe that was their line of thinking. But it was just, I don't know, it just felt kind of dumb to me for her character to say, hey, this doesn't work. And then they try it anyway. And then what happens? It doesn't work. Like, I don't know. I thought that was that was dumb. And then, like, the whole thing with, like,
That part, I think by her saying it and them doing it, like, I don't think that's dumb. I think that's just like they're in a fight or flight situation. What are you gonna do? You're gonna shoot the ghost with the ghost gun. Like, I think it was just like instinct, at least for the older Ghostbusters. So that's probably one of the reasonings they did it.
Yeah, and that makes sense, but to me at least, like I said, it just looks dumb. It's like going up against a knight and you in like full on armor, and you have this fork, and somebody tells you, "Hey, if you stab that guy with that fork, it won't work." Okay, well, I'm going to stab him anyway. Oh, it didn't work. Like, what did you expect? I don't know. That's just me. Like, that's just how I felt about that. And then, like, Phoebe like uses the brass to like melt down, and the proton stream does work a little bit against the ghost, but it only like kind of stops him, and he ends up freezing everybody anyway. So it's like, then what was the point? Like, personally, I feel like that scene would have worked better because like Camille Nanjiani comes in at the end, uses his firebending powers, and captures the ghost. I feel like that scene would have worked way better had Camille Nanjiani been able to capture the ghost with the help of Phoebe using her brass proton stream to stall him. Like, if she like, I felt like that would have worked better instead of her using it to stall him for a little bit and her still getting frozen. But that's me. So we've already kind of touched on this, but would you guys be open for more Ghostbusters movies, or do you feel like the franchise should be put to rest and placed into the Ghostbusters containment unit forever?
I like Phoebe and I like Podcast. They're great characters, so I would love to see more about them. I wish they would have gotten to like hang out a bit more in this one, but like if they continue, I'm sure they'll be funny. I mean, it's ghosts and it's a comedy movie, so I'm sure that they'll like keep making them as long as people want to make them. Although, like in Ghostbusters Afterlife, the person who plays Egon, he passed away, and then in this one, the director of the original Ghostbusters, it was dedicated to him. So now he's passed. So I guess we'll just have to see what they do moving forward on like I'm not really sure who's like in charge of the Ghostbusters right now or like how that all works, but you know, it's very possible that they'll make another one. We'll just have to see.
Yeah, I'm with you, Miranda. I also like Phoebe and Podcast. Finn Wolfhard, he's okay, but Phoebe and Podcast are great characters, and I would like to see more movies with them. Heck, it would be kind of cool if maybe like we got a movie with an older Phoebe and Podcast, like where they're more adults or young adults at least. Like that'd be kind of cool. So I do like I would be I mean, I'm a huge Ghostbusters fan. Of course I'm going to be open for more movies. But I will say, because there's a lot of people online, especially online, saying that the Ghostbusters franchise needs to die and just be laid to rest. Because what's the point of these movies or whatever? I will say that if we don't like if the franchise were to end right here, I just want one thing and one thing only, and that is a sequel to the 2009 Ghostbusters video game. If I can just get that, and then like never get anything Ghostbusters related ever again, I think I'd be pretty happy. What about you, Udi? Would you be open for more Ghostbusters movies? Or do you think the franchise should end right here, right now?
I feel like I understand both viewpoints because, as we've discussed already, it does kind of seem like all of these movies are kind of like they all kind of end the same way. And outside of like the very first one, I really don't know what they have to offer really. Like the first one had more like it had more like commentary on like being able to turn anything for a buck and stuff like that and other things, whatever. But like it actually had something like fun to say. It was a comedy and whatever. but like then they tried to franchise the movies, and like that's fine. Like again, like I appreciate the movies for what they are. They're just like silly little comedies basically with like some serious or heartfelt moments or whatever. And I enjoy that for what it is, but I think at least the thing that I've seen online a lot, and from someone from the podcast, like Miranda, seemingly doesn't really like this too much. Is just like I think people are just getting sick and tired of franchises or like things having to always be a franchise. And I mean, me to some degree, I do agree with that. Like depending on the thing, like there are some things I'm like that would be cool to like get more of that world. But there are other things where it's like, really, why does that need to be a franchise? Like, why can't that just be a one and done movie? Like, why does everything need a sequel? But for like Ghostbusters, I can understand like just wanting him to die and like for like no one to ever or for like for them to just like never make anything Ghostbusters again. Like I could understand that sentiment because especially too, I mean, judging by the box office performances of the last two movies, it doesn't really seem like there is a desire for these anyway. So it is kind of like, okay, well, who are you making these for? Because if no one wants to even go see these, then like, who are you making these for? And like, there's seemingly not enough people who really care to go check these out. But me personally, I would go see another Ghostbusters movie. Like, I like this cast. I do feel like they didn't do a good enough job of fleshing out these characters. You mentioned Finn Wolfhard, and look, I've kind of gone back from when I was younger and like first saw him on Stranger Things. I thought he was fine before. The way I'll put it is, I don't think he's a bad actor. I just think he has a very limited range, and I think in the right role, I think he would work really well. But I just feel like in a role like this where he really just doesn't have anything to do. Like he had a little bit more to do in the last one, but in this one it's just like he's barely in it, and you could eliminate the character and it really wouldn't do anything to the story. Like he has no real purpose outside of just being this other character that's just there. I like Carrie Coon's character. I like Paul Rudd. I liked Paul Rudd's little like story arc, character arc in the movie where he's like learning to be a dad and becomes a dad by the end. Like I thought that was a cute little arc. You know, obviously that's intertwined with Carrie Coon, but I mean Carrie Coon also doesn't really get a lot to do, unfortunately. So like I like her and I think that she's fine in this, but she doesn't really have a lot to do. So I feel like it was a mistake to not, and I don't know how you would change Afterlife, I really don't, but I feel like it was a mistake to not flesh out these characters more in their first movie, because I feel like that's how it usually goes. Like you flesh them out really well in the first one, and then in the sequel you don't have to worry about that as much because you already fleshed them out. But I don't really feel like they did enough. Like outside of like Phoebe podcast, and I don't really remember Afterlife that well. Like we got a good amount of screen time with Paul Rudd and the mom, but I don't know. But like in this one, I don't really feel like you got a lot of screen time or a lot of like, character development with Paul Rudd, Carrie Coon, or Finn Wolfhard's characters like much at all. Like they were there, but and even Phoebe didn't really get too much character development. Like it was just like she got to do her summer of being a silly teenager and making silly mistakes. Like okay, but was there like a point to it really, or like I don't know. So I just feel like that was the biggest thing for me for this movie. And so like if in a theoretical sequel, if we were to get that somehow, I think it'd be cool if they were able to spend a bit more time with these characters. Or maybe they could like split them up like, oh, Finn Wolfhard is off on like he went to college or he's on vacation in Europe. I don't know, just something ridiculous. And you could have like a smaller core group. Let's say like Phoebe, Carrie Coon, and Paul Rudd, and then that way you have the smaller group and you get a bit more character development with the three of them, and then that way it's a bit more focused with that regard, and then you can do whatever with the rest of the story. But yeah, I don't think we're gonna get that. But if they rebooted in X amount of time, as long as it looked interesting, I'd be down to go see it. But I mean, if it's like of the quality of like Madam Web, and you can tell from the trailer just like Madam Web, then I mean, I'd go see it if you guys wanted to see it, but I wouldn't be rushing to go see that. But yeah, I don't know. Like, I can understand both arguments for wanting to either A, for the franchise to die, or B, for them to keep going, I guess. So,
Yeah, and like you said, that makes a lot of sense. And just as a Ghostbusters fan, like I don't have like a strong desire for the franchise to keep going. Like I think I've already stated, like if it were to end now, like I wouldn't be that bothered by it. But I just want a sequel. I just want a sequel to that video game, man. That's all I want.
Yeah, I do feel like a good proper like third person perspective Ghostbusters game like would be cool. Like a full blown like single player maybe with co-op. Like that would be really cool. But I guess we'll have to see if that ever happens.
Yeah, they keep wanting to make these like multiplayer focused like first person games, and it's like I get that because Ghostbusters is like ripe for multiplayer, but that 2009 game was like it was a perfect Ghostbusters game, and I don't understand why. I mean I don't know how much of a success it was because it did get a remaster. It did warrant a remaster at least, but yeah, I don't know. To me, at least, that's how you do a Ghostbusters game. All right, let's move on to ratings. So, how would you guys rate Ghostbusters Frozen Empire? We'll start with you, Udi. How would you rate it?
After a lot of careful consideration, because again, I did enjoy the movie. I did get a lot of like just small, like mostly chuckle laughs, and then there was a few parts where like I did laugh. I did enjoy it, and like I said, it was just like a fun little popcorn movie. I didn't expect a lot out of it, and I got exactly, for the most part, like what I was expecting to get out of it. So, it's like a no harm, no foul kind of movie. Like I went in with not expecting a lot, and went in getting out and just being like, yeah, that was fun. I don't know when I'll watch it again. I don't know if I'll care to watch it again, but I enjoyed it. So I'm gonna go with a 3. It was better than just like plain Jane whatever, but I don't know that it was like great. So I'll go with a 3.
What about you, Miranda? How would you rate Ghostbusters Frozen Empire?
Give Ghostbusters Frozen Empire a 3. It's, it's pretty funny. It's pretty on par with the other ones. I don't find a lot of the humor in Ghostbusters movies to be my favorite type of humor, but I think this one and Afterlife have a good balance of comedic bits in it. And like, yeah, I guess you could look at it and be like, "Oh, this part's kind of dumb," or like, "Oh, this part doesn't really make sense." But overall, it's a movie about some people with laser guns shooting ghosts. So, like, if you just sit back, have some popcorn and in for a casual Saturday morning watch, it's pretty good for that. So, yeah, a 3.
When I saw this for the first time, I didn't rate this movie on Letterboxd until like a day or two after, and I gave it a 2.5 on Letterboxd my first time, but I'm going to be generous and I'm also going to rate it a 3, mainly because I'm just a huge Ghostbusters fan. And when I think back on this movie, when I walked out, my first feeling was okay, this is below average to me. This is a 2.5. But I think back to Afterlife, and like I feel like now this is just me, but I feel like this movie was a step below Afterlife, but not by much. And I feel like if we had been doing this podcast when Afterlife came out, I would have given Afterlife a 3.5. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give this one a 3 as well. Hey, that's easy math. Threes across the board. The Atomic Lizard's official rating is a 3 out of 5 for Ghostbusters Frozen Empire.
Which is pretty nice, I would say. And we did cover the original Ghostbusters on our Halloween episode in 2023, so go check that out if you haven't listened to it. And we gave the original Ghostbusters a 4 out of 5. So, just an interesting thing. But that was our conversation about Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. So thank you so much for joining us and listening to our conversation. If you're interested in hearing more, check out our previous episodes. And as always, you can find us on Instagram at Atomic Lizards Pod and on Letterboxd at Atomic_Lizards.